Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about slow travel, real costs that no one talks about. And you know, we share our monthly budget every month with you guys and our income. And this isn't ever something that we talk about because there's doesn't really have a line item because there's really no amount to put in there, right? To calculate. So you know, there's costs involved with full-time, especially slow travel, that are not calculated into budgets. So let's talk a little bit about what those might be.
Yeah, the first one is going to be money lost on things that you purchase in advance, but you then cannot do or complete. And this has happened to us a few times over the years, and it's been pretty painful, but we've avoided it then because we've rechanged how we do things. So back in 2020, we were booking things out like a whole year in advance. We were prepaying everything, and then 2020 happened, and we had a hotel prepaid to go to India. Couldn't go to India because they wouldn't let us come, and so we tried to get the money back. Could not get the money back. Lost $500 because it was a prepaid hotel and they wouldn't refund it. So that was on hotels.com, and so that just really was bad, and so we made the decision right then, we're never, ever, ever booking prepaid hotels again. We're not doing it like that. Now, we did do it one more time, and it did work out, but we pre-booked it like a couple weeks before we were going. This was, a long time in the future. So now, like what hotels.com and all these other places are doing is they're offering you a rate of like $100 a night, but they'll give it to you for $90 a night if you prepay it. Same with a car rental. If you prepay it, you'll save 10%. Never take that, because your plans are going to change so much over the course of a year that it's just not going to be worth it with the money that you lose. So that's the big one. That's why we also love to travel with points, because points are always refundable. We book everything with points. That's why we buy points through IHG, because when we book with points, you get the best rate and they are refundable. So that was a huge lesson learned. Another one that we didn't do that we prepaid was an Airbnb, and we couldn't go to it. And one time we got to one and it just was not what we expected.
We just couldn't make it work. There were too many issues with it, and we were just like, oh, we've already paid an entire month on this. Like, what should we do? And, we just thought, we're just going to have to walk away because it's just not going to work for an entire month to live like this. So we, packed our stuff up and moved over to a hotel. Thankfully, we had enough points sitting there that we could still do it on points, but, those were going to be used for something else. So we kind of lost out on that. But, it's just one of those reasons why you want to have the points sitting there, because you can use it for situations like this. It ended up working out really amazing. The hotel that we moved to was perfect. The staff was incredible. Everything exceeded our expectations there. And we, quickly forgot about the loss of walking away from that Airbnb. It's really the difference of what it was like when we first started traveling versus all of those lessons that we've learned, in almost 7 years of full-time travel, kind of making different decisions now. Because like you said, when we started out back in 2018, we were booking stuff like way out in advance and paying for everything. It just really makes a difference from then to now.
Now we're booking things out in advance, but everything is cancelable. And that's the big key, because you just don't know if you're going to change things. And on Airbnb, we've only ever walked away from a reservation twice, like in the middle of the stay. Both times it was not with a superhost. So the lesson here is always, always, always book with a superhost, because things are going to be better, or they're going to make it right. If it's not a superhost, they're really under no obligation to fix things for you, because they don't really care. They're just going to shut down. If they get enough bad reviews, they'll just shut down their account and start a new one. And so they don't really care about service. They just want your money. So superhost, they've already attained that status. They're not going to shut that account down. They're just going to fix the problem. And that is what we've learned always book with a superhost.
Exactly. The next one we're going to talk about is losing money out on cruises, like a cruise deposit that you've made because we didn't end up going on the cruise.
Yeah, some things over the years we've booked, you know, quite a few cruises, 30 or 40, and a couple of times we just decided, you know, we put $200 to $300 down on the cruise to save it, and we decided, you know, we really don't want to go to Europe right then. There's a lot better deal that came up, and we'd rather go here. So at the end of the day, it was fine because we ended up saving more money because of what we were doing anyway than the $200 or $300. But the lesson here is don't put a deposit down on a cruise that's like $1,200 or $2,000. We generally try to keep the deposits in the low hundreds because it gives you flexibility, especially if you're booking them a year or two in the future. We really don't like putting big deposits down on those.
Yeah, and the thing is, you know, that some other cruise, better deal on a cruise could come up for a different one with either the same or close or better itinerary or better, you know, accommodation on the cruise might come up, and you just don't want to commit that much up front. You always want to put down the least amount that you could possibly put down for your deposit on the cruises.
Yep.
The next one is predicting. You can't predict family emergencies. Those things are just going to come up. We haven't, thankfully, we haven't had this really come up with us. We have several friends who have had this come up, either illnesses or, you know, death in the family and things like that that just come up out of nowhere. If you are planning long ahead of time, far out, it's going to be a lot harder to, you know, you're going to walk away from them because you're going to go tend to your family, but it's going to be really a big one to take.
That's just, again, why you keep everything refundable and don't book a lot of non-refundable stuff. Next one is going to be unexpected world events where you lose money. Kind of talked about this already. In 2020, we lost quite a bit of money through the Hotels.com one. Now, interestingly, Airbnb did refund us all of our money that we lost for places that we could not get into, and they also refunded the host for people that weren't going. So they actually handled that a lot better than the hotels did, but I don't think they're going to do that in the future because now they have clauses saying we won't do that again. So unexpected world events, it just comes down to, again, don't book things ahead of time, and there will be places maybe where you get somewhere and you're just uncomfortable. We've been in several places where the events going on there were not good and we just wanted to get out of there. So that could be something that you have to just eat sometimes.
Yeah, and you know, you always have an emergency fund for things, you know, to help cover costs if you have to go somewhere, and you always want to have, you know, your insurance, and always paying attention to which card you're using to pay for things, because the cards will help cover some of the insurance costs, like travel insurance type things for emergencies, or if you have to leave somewhere or whatever, like Rob was saying, if there's something going on that doesn't, you know, feel right and you want to just leave, then you can use your emergency fund for those types of things too. The next one is rental cars. This is something that comes up. So when we sold everything, we also sold our cars. And once you don't have a car, you know what you can't have? You can't have car insurance if you don't have a car and you have no property. So that one has, you know, kind of became a tricky one for us, right?
Yeah, so now when we rent a car, basically you can get some insurances through your credit card, but you will not have liability insurance. So you're going to need to purchase that, and it is pretty expensive, coming in at like, you know, $15, $20 a day. So if you rent a car for a month, drive around, when you go back home, it's going to cost you an extra $400, $500, $600 that you were not expecting. So just keep that in mind, that it's not going to be super cheap to do that. But on the flip side, you are saving the $250 a month that you were paying in car insurance
For no reason.
We're saving $3,000 a month, and about once a year we have to pay an extra $600. So that's not terrible, but it's a good trade-off.
Yeah, for sure. The next one is, it's not necessarily hidden, but people don't think about it when they're doing this, but the costs also of traveling in an inefficient manner.
Yeah, exactly. This means flying from country to country and not lining them up so that they're in a region where you're going to have low cost fares. So you don't want to fly from the US to Europe to Asia to Latin America. We see people go from the US to Europe and then to Mexico and then to Africa. It's like, why did you go like this? You could have just gone from US to Mexico to Europe to Africa. It would have been so much cheaper. But you know, people sometimes just don't think about it. And if you're inefficient in your travel, your flights, your trains, they're going to cost a whole lot more.
Absolutely, those definitely start to add up when you're just not thinking about that kind of stuff. Or if you say, "Oh, I want to, do the summer in Europe, but then I want to be in, Asia in the winter, but then I want to go back to Europe after that." That's really going to cost you, because those basically movement fees, transportation fees, really rack up if you do not move in an inefficient manner. You kind of have to map it out, right?
Exactly. Next is going to be baggage fees. And when you have a house and you are just traveling on vacation, you only need to bring what you need. You can both get away with a small bag. But when you've sold your house, you've sold your possessions, we have everything that we have with us at all times. And it's a lot more than you would take just to go on vacation. So, for instance, if we go somewhere, let's say we wanted to go to the Maldives, most people just take a small bag to the Maldives because you don't need everything. But we would have nowhere to leave that stuff. So we would have to fly with all 4 of our bags. They're going to charge you extra baggage fees because they don't want that many bags on a seaplane and different things like that. And that does happen quite often, where we have way more bags than anybody else. We get on a Japanese train with all our bags. Even trains in Europe, it's like most people in Europe, they get on a train, they have one little bag like this. We have 4 bags with us, and they're like, "Why do you Americans travel with so much stuff?" I'm like, "Well, this is everything we own."
This is everything I have.
So, but you don't really have to pay too many baggage fees on trains. You'll just struggle on the trains. But on flights, you may have to pay some overages, so be ready for that. One kind of way to get around that we've noticed is if you buy the packages or you buy the hot seat, which is a little bit of an upcharge, or you get a business class ticket, they will almost always overlook your extra bags and not charge you anything additional.
Yeah, it is kind of nice when you do that. They're just like, your bag's over, but let's say it's not.
Yeah.
Keep it between us, wink, wink. Which is kind of funny that's happened to us actually quite a few times overseas. But, you end up actually like even having to store your bag, pay to store your bags places too, where you're just doing like, stopping somewhere on your way to someplace else and you've got all your stuff with you. It's like, we've done this before where we were traveling from one part of Italy to another part, but we stopped at like Pisa in between, and we were like, well, we can't drag our bags from the train station all the way to see the Leaning Tower of Pisa. So we found someplace near the station where we could store our bags. So you have to pay for that, and then, that way we could go on without having to drag our bags down the cobblestone sidewalks in Pisa. But that's, another thing that we add in as well.
Yeah, so it is a lot with the bags, but you do, overall, I would say you want to bring with you what you need. You don't want to, it's not as big of a deal as not having everything you need. That's a bigger deal, because then you got to keep buying stuff everywhere you go. So we're happy to pay a little bit extra when we need to. In Japan, we end up shipping our bags quite a bit. But for the most part, we just have them with us. It's a little bit more work, it's a little bit more expense, but since we're slow traveling and we end up in places for a long time, it's good to have all those things with us.
Yeah, exactly. And then one last one is sometimes we spend extra money on things like, paying for an extra night for an Airbnb or a hotel in order to have some place to wait because of the timing of things. Like if we have a really late night flight, like say 10 p.m. and we're in Rome, we book the hotel for one more night so we could sit there. Because the thing that you have to keep in mind is you think to yourself, well, just go to the airport, check in, and go sit in the lounge. Well, several problems. The first one is that you can't check in until 2 hours before your flight for the most part at almost all airports overseas. In the US, you can check in whenever you want, no problem. But most places overseas, including Europe, Asia, all over, you cannot check in until 2 hours before your flight. So you're just going to be sitting there at the airport, just waiting to check in before the check-in area. So you can't even get through security and go to the lounge. So we usually try to book someplace, stay an extra night or whatever, book an extra night, and then that way we have someplace to sit comfortably and we can, have lunch or whatever and not have to worry about, where leaving your bags at the hotel or trying to go sit somewhere.
Yeah, it's great to do. Costs a little extra money though. So these are the things that we found we spend unexpected money on. Let us know if you have any more that you have found that you spend it on, or have friends that have spent it on as well.
All right, guys, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Give us a like if you enjoyed the content. We'll see you guys next time.